Hey YouTube, welcome back to the channel. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you. As a small creator, every like, comment, and subscription helps the channel grow. So again, I truly appreciate the support. If my voice sounds a little off today, it's because allergies are absolutely kicking my ass. So apologies in advance, everybody. Let me know down in the comment section what you think. I'd love to hear your feedback. So my journey with this MCX Virtus is where I'll be focusing on for this video, how I got into the platform, my initial thoughts, and how my setup evolved over time. In part 2, I'll be covering the Spear LT, so if you're interested in that, be sure to stay tuned. Before we get to why I picked the Virtus though, let's talk about my approach to rifle building in general, or as I like to call them, projects. So I'm a big believer that if you're going to go and own multiple rifles, you should do your best to have them fit a purpose and a profile rather than just slapping on parts because they're new. It's easy to get caught up in that cycle, but taking a step back and actually considering what role a rifle is meant to fill is a better approach in my opinion. Troops really do make do with what they have in a lot of instances because you can't plan for everything, where it's the whole do-it-all rifle kind of comes to bear. Which is probably its own video. Let's go back about 3 years. At that point, I was looking to take my first steps into that premium AR territory, and I really liked what the MCX Virtus had to offer, given that this was the second iteration and seemingly the kinks had been worked out. And at the time, it was a good fit for what I was considering. For the performance I'm getting out of everything that I own, I'm more than happy with that. So the shift from more guns to better guns is really kind of what this represented for me. That was when I started moving away from the more is better to better is better. And I'd reached a point where I was looking at my collection and thinking, why do I have this many rifles that are all functionally the same in terms of barrel length and caliber? You can only have so many 16-inch 5.56 guns, guys, right? You don't need to have every 5.56 gun that comes out. If I see one more Reddit post with a dude with 18 unfinished 16-inch rifles, I promise you. But anyway, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with owning multiple rifles, as obviously I do, but it's important that you have to start kind of mediating yourself with what you're doing, because a bunch of mid-tier rifles that are incomplete, it's like you could have one or two really high quality, different purpose rifles for what you're paying for all 16 of the poverty ponies you've got. That shift in thinking is what got me to the MCX platform in the first place. So I wanted something that felt different, something that actually had unique capabilities rather than just being another AR with slightly different rail and stock. One of the main reasons I picked up the Virtus was because I was under the impression that it was a hard use, dare I say, battle ready platform. I know I'm stepping into dangerous territory by saying that, but it was on its second iteration and most manufacturers at that point had some time to work out a lot of the kinks. I may have given Sig a little too much credit in this department. We all know. That being said, spoiler alert, I haven't had any issues with mine. That's not to discount any issues you've had with yours. So, you know, take that with a grain of salt. This was my first rifle with a folding stock also, just want to point that out, which I thought was really, really cool at the time. And I still think it's a great feature, but as I've gained more experience and listened to people with a lot more knowledge than me, I've realized that the folding capability is actually more of a transportation perk than a true functional necessity. On top of the fact that the reality is you getting to a situation, you know, as a common American, where you're going to be hopping out of a vehicle and unfolding a stock and going all Sicaro on anybody is just like 0.000% chance. So just, you know, let's keep a little bit of reality in this. Right out of the box though, the Virtus had me sold on the aesthetics. It had a very kind of futuristic look which I hadn't seen with a lot of ARs. Most of them are just kind of iterations on an existing kind of theme, but they really got out of the box with this, in my opinion, in terms of the aesthetics. So one thing I wasn't really prepared for the Virtus was just how heavy this thing was. And I'm saying it's not as bad as I thought it was initially. And before you say hit the gym,
baby arms. What?
let me clarify. I had nothing to compare it to at the time. Up until that point, I had handled only standard direct impingement AR-15s, so I didn't have a frame of reference for how much extra weight a piston-driven system would add. Now that I've had a lot more experience handling different setups, I got a much better understanding of weight versus capability, which could really just be a video all on its own. Just because they make parts, guys, doesn't mean you gotta hang it off your rifle. Again, having some of the stuff on my rifle that you see here, I would call this close to minimalist, though I'm sure some would argue the opposite here. Just know that this rifle is a gym membership in disguise, so be ready for that if you're gonna go ahead and grab one of these. I do want to point out something that's really funny here. So I have ChatGPT sometimes clean up some of my notes, and it recommends things, as you all know. One of the things it said was, like any new gun owner with some disposable income and poor impulse control, I immediately started customizing it, and I took that personally. ChatGPT, that wasn't even necessary. But moving on, I didn't say it wasn't true. I just said it was a little direct. So the first setup looked something like this. I'll throw it on the screen there. Had the Vortex Strike Eagle 1-6 with a QD scope mount from Midwest Industries. A buttstock I couldn't name if my life depended on it. Please throw that in the comment section if you'd like. Had the Magpul 45-degree iron sights in a less than ideal position because of the QD mount. There wasn't a whole lot of space between the charging handle and the last space on the rail. Ironically, again, because I just didn't know what I didn't know, having 45-degree offset iron sights on a rig that you can actually remove the scope from in a quick detach fashion makes zero sense. So yeah, there's that. That was embarrassing. Moving on. I had the Midwest Industries M-Lock rail as well, and then I had a mod light on there, scout lights. And at the time, suppressors were just not even on my radar. I was still in the mindset of build first, worry about suppression later. Nowadays, though, getting into firearms and whatnot, a lot of people are thinking about suppression from the start, which is awesome. If you're picking up a Virtus, chances are you already have a plan to suppress it, and you're already in a much better position than I was back then. So as most of us in this space learn about very quickly, it's something called restless rifle syndrome. It is real. I don't care what any of you say. Fight me in the comments section. With this next iteration, it evolved a bit. I'll throw this one up on the screen as well. Holosun 507K at the 45-degree with an Arisaka offset mount. Swapped out the no-name Walmart stock for the Magpul CTR. You'll notice first dedicated suppressor. It was a Vox S 30 cal on a reared end flash hider. Now, at this stage, I was still figuring it out, but I had some level of direction. The addition of a dedicated suppressor was a game changer for me, but I didn't realize how much weight I was adding, and it was not light, not in the least. Everything bolted on. Even attempting to run multiple drills with this thing was killer, honestly. A lot of that has to do with my fat ass, doughy stomach and weak back muscles, but I would challenge even in shape people to run with this the way it was at the time. Next iteration, EOTECH XPS 3 plus the 5X magnifier, no riser at that point. Switched to the Spear LT handguard, the longer one, not the shorter one. Strike Industries hand stop. That's a Unity button with a Surefire scout light, and then a Surefire muzzle device, plus the new can, or a newer can, B&T titanium K suppressor, which I immediately replaced. We'll talk about that later. At this point, the Virtus was just heavy for no reason. Front heavy and felt like a just absolute boat anchor, but it looked amazing. And if it doesn't look amazing, then why are we doing it, right? That's the phrase here on this channel. Functionally, though, it was just not great with that suppressor. The first suppressor The Vox S was going good, but I had originally bought the B&T for a shorter overall package and to try to presumably save weight. Again, my ignorance is showing, and it was about the same in weight. It was overall shorter, but a K-can on an MCX Virtus, while it was shorter overall, a true baffled K-can on a Virtus is just your musket territory. Dealing with the suppression aspect of this, along with the maneuverability, I thought a shorter K-can would be the move. And while I was half right, I was mostly wrong, because a true baffled K-can on this suppressor host is absolutely terrible. It is nigh unshootable. I was a little surprised, given that this does have the settings for adverse and normal, which doesn't, and this is something, please correct me in the comments if you'd like, but my understanding is, yes, it does apply to suppression, but really it's supposed to be, hey, I'm out here in the dirt, snow, whatever, sand, and my gun's not running, I need more gas. You hit the switch, right? Even that just didn't address it. I mean, we're talking black powder musket levels of gas on every trigger pull. We're not even talking about rapid fire. We're saying I just pulled the trigger one time, that gun was unshootable with that suppressor on it. Maybe mine was messed up, but I think that's the typical going perspective on the Virtus as a suppressor host with a standard baffled suppressor, but that had to come off. And I did some research, ended up going with the flow-through suppressor HUXWRX specifically for this project. So after I made a number of bad decisions trying to chase a much more maneuverable, less gassy gun, and really just learning a lot along the way about what good suppressors pair well with what hosts, and some of the things you can do to mitigate that, along with weight and length, we arrived at where we are now. So the final build, and this really is the final build, cut the barrel 13.9, pin and welded, the muzzle device ATF, leave me and my dog alone, radiant charging handle, MCX, I guess it would be the standard folding stock, with a run rich cheek piece. It is very nice. I'd like to add, I'll have to do a review on that. Grove Tech rail wrap, Aimpoint comp M5 on a Unity riser, plus the flip to center 5X G45 magnifier, Ambus Pro backup iron sights. Got rid of those 45 degreers, despite the fact that they probably would work on this build a little bit better, but you know, who's counting. Strike Industries hand stop has been removed, and we are dealing with the Ape Defense. You probably saw that review on my video playlist. If you haven't, go here, check it out. Hope you like it. Surefire KE1H scout flashlight, and finally the HUXWRX Flow 556K suppressor. So one of the things that I've really enjoyed about this build and this final iteration is just how well this thing handles. I'm still kind of getting into the groove of how this thing runs, but just basic handling of this rifle has been top notch. I really could talk about this for the next 10 minutes about how good this thing feels, but I'm gonna have to get it out to the range and get some more footage of it in its current configuration. There was a long time where I was back and forth about the Unity setup, and the funny thing about it is I've actually become something of a believer. The run rich cheek piece, which, and I'm gonna rant for just a second. I'm gonna put it on the screen. Sig, explain to me how you all created this specific cheek piece. Classic Firearms had a video and I saw it in passing, and the dude basically straight up said, oh yeah, no, some guy at Sig was like, oh, we have one of these, would you like it? They don't sell it, you can't find it. I searched all over for it and they just don't exist. Luckily, I just happened to run into this particular guy. I'm actually going to, well, I don't know that I can link. If I can't link it, then maybe I'll just leave this mention in the video. If I can, you'll find it in the about section of the video. But he was able to get that put together and sent out to me. And it has absolutely changed how I look at the Unity riser setup. I have kind of an older school view on the whole solid cheek weld. I'm learning to embrace the chin weld, but it is nice to have something to keep my chin from floating out there in Never Never Land when I am shouldering this particular rifle. I thought the Unity stuff was kind of a gimmick. It really is faster. I don't know that I would make that my primary setup because I don't run night vision, which that's really what this is for. If you're someone who runs night vision, this really is a great setup for you. If you're somebody who just wants a faster dot, I don't know that a 2.2 height is going to really add anything to your setup. So just wanted to go ahead and point that out. The 556K suppressor is what tied all this together. No gas blowback at all. Rapid fire, single fire, doesn't matter. This thing, it runs like a dream with this. Totally changed my perspective on the overgassing of this gun. My recommendation is go with a flow through. Don't go with anything else. Just go with the flow through. Save yourself the time, the money, and the cancer. Buy once, cry once, and get that out of the way. The Virtus has evolved into something that it feels fully realized. It's no longer a rifle that I'm just kind of tweaking on here and there. It just works the way that I have it put together now. I'm very comfortable with it. Looking back, there's a few key lessons that I took away from this. Firstly, stop throwing parts at a problem you don't necessarily understand. I recommend anybody who is new into this whole game, really do your research, guys. Don't just go out there and buy something because, oh, it fits, or I can put it on, or I can wrench it on. If I had done my homework up front, I would have saved myself a lot of time and money. This is another one that a lot of people, I know it's kind of an unpopular sentiment, and I'm not trying to imply or infer, because I know that this happens a lot in our community. Buy once, cry once, but also think first. Everyone says that, but what they don't tell you is that you still need to know what you're buying, right? I wasted, man, I don't even want to say, I actually ended up with more suppressors than I probably should have. Granted, I was able to recover and find uses for them, but if I knew then what I knew now, I would not have made some of the choices I made, even though they did end up working out in terms of trying to find K suppressors with hosts that just didn't work. But I will say the biggest impact was just choosing the right suppressor. That made all the difference. Lastly, have a clear view of what you're building for. And it took me a while to kind of identify this. At first, I wanted it to be kind of my do-it-all, everything rifle, but that's just not realistic. Every build has some level of trade-off. And trying to make one rifle do every role, you're just going to wind up compromising in some areas that you just may not have run across yet. Because let's be transparent here, there's a whole lot of us that are doing this out of mom's basement, and this will never see the outside of day or outside of your rifle safe. So would I recommend the Virtus? 100%, absolutely. Again, no problems thus far. Your mileage may vary. So that's pretty much where we are with this. There is gonna be a part 2 for the Spear build and how I applied everything I learned from the Virtus, and whether the Spear LT is actually also still kind of worth it. If you made it this far, I appreciate you watching. Let me know what you think in the comments. Have you built out an MCX? Are you considering one? Like, subscribe, and stay tuned for—
Girls, this is what happens when you spend irresponsibly. You end up with shit on your rifle that you don't have to have, but you get it anyway. So this is happening.